Hi, everyone, and welcome to Stack Your Own Deck with your host, Larry Bradley, and myself, Neil Haley. And episode 2 begins. And Larry, it's great to talk to you again. Great feedback on the first show. They just want more, Larry. That's what I've been hearing from the audience. They want more. They want to know solutions to help themselves so they can be happy and healthy for sure, Larry.
Awesome, Neil. I'm hearing the same things that people have requested our free report on 10 things you can do right now to put your immune system on steroids. Lots of really positive feedback and powerful feedback. And you're right, they do want more. So let's give it to them.
Exactly. So today on Stack Your Own Deck, we're going to talk about behavior, which gives us all of our results in our lives. What drives our behavior? Where does it come from? And how can we change it? And how can it benefit us? So I'm really excited to talk to you about this, Larry. So where does our behavior come from?
Neil, we're early in the program of Stack Your Own Deck here. This is only our second show, and this is critically important to clear this up front because it sets a stage for everything we will do from this point forward. It's a base of understanding about, let's look at it this way. It's our behavior that gives us our results. It's the things that we do and or fail to do that create our reality, physically, mentally, spiritually, every which way in our lives. So here's what I know. Many people believe that their behavior is random and there's not much they can do about it. While conversely, there's a number of people that believe that their behavior is fixed and it's set and there's nothing they can do and there's no use trying. Well, the truth is, our behavior is neither. There is a 5-step self-management sequence that we all use that generates our behavior, which gives us our results. And in Stack Your Own Deck, we teach the 5-step. It's called the self-management sequence, teaching people where their behavior actually comes from, because once you understand where your behavior comes from, you can influence and change it. And that's what most people are looking to do.
That's
you got to get out of the trap of
definitely
thinking that it's random or fixed.
I mean, that's so important. You got to know what the behavior is before you can change it, right?
Well, right. And people, I think once they become aware, unfortunately, a lot of people are walking around unaware. And awareness to me is everything. If you're aware of what you're doing, then you're aware of why you're getting the results you're getting or not failing to get the results that you want. So influencing that behavior at its base is critically important to get us doing the things that we want, that we need to do to get the results we want to get around health, wealth, happiness, whatever, because it affects every aspect of our being.
So let's talk about that, the 5 steps. That's important to talk about in today's episode, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes, I think if we teach today, and it's very simple. Let me start at the beginning. So the 5-step sequence or self-management sequence begins with, to avoid any debate, because people would argue it begins in the womb, or some people would even argue before that. I'll just say step 1 begins when we're born. And step 1 of the sequence is called programming. We begin immediately to interact. Now, obviously, we don't have a vocabulary yet. We're developing as a baby, but we're interacting with our parents. So we get verbal cues and nonverbal programming, the love they share, the touching, the holding, the communications they begin to attempt, all the way up to now. You could go further. You have siblings, you have your ultimately friends and teachers, and all these different people begin early on to start to shape the programming that we receive. Ultimately, our biggest programmer becomes ourselves.
Yeah,
Probably
definitely.
somewhere or around the age of reason, we start to program ourselves based on the programming we've already received. Make sense?
It makes complete sense. So from that step, you kind of it goes from there.
Right. So the next step is that the programming then creates in us a belief system, a set of beliefs. So the programming tells us basically who we are and how the world works. And then we begin to adopt a belief system around that based on that programming. Okay. So we have a set of beliefs. And I'll walk you through an example, or actually two examples, of how this actually manifests in a human being and how it creates an outcome or a result. So you have the programming that then creates the beliefs. From the belief system that we hold and have and believe, we create an attitude, right? We develop an attitude about our life and the world we live in and how we represent ourselves to ourselves and to the world that we interact with. So you have programming that creates beliefs, that creates an attitude. And here's where it becomes magic. The next step is the attitudes then develop into feelings.
Okay.
And Neil, I want to pause here because this is important. Everything that every one of us does or fails to do is based on a feeling. Feelings drive behavior. You hear people say, you may have said it yourself. I say, if you're breathing, you've probably said this many times to yourself. Why in the world did I do that? I knew better, or I know better. Well,
exactly.
That process, that question assumes that we behave based on logic, and we don't. We behave based on feelings. How we feel will control and direct every single bit of our behavior. Listen to the common language we hear, like people will say to us, our spouse or our kids, hey, I feel like going to the mall, or I feel like going shopping, or I don't want to go, I don't feel like going to the movies. Always feel, because feelings drive the fifth step, which again is our behavior. So you're programmed, you develop a set of beliefs from those programs, you develop your attitudes about the world you're living in and interacting with, which then creates the feelings which drive all of our behavior. Now we behave
yeah.
and get results or fail to
That's completely wild to think about. It's very simple to think about, but yet we just don't understand it in our minds the way we look at things.
Right. And when you understand this, then you can begin to take some control. And there are aspects of how the mind works that I think are critically important. But let me walk you through a couple, if I may, a couple of examples of that sequence, the self-management sequence at work in the human experience.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Let's say the programming in my house or anyone's house, beginning very early as a child, is that, we're working middle class people. We're never going to be wealthy. It's just who we are. So that programming becomes reinforced not only verbally in those words, but in the reality of what we see our parents doing for a living and how they live their lives. So the programming, let's just say it says we're going to be middle class, never going to be wealthy people. Okay. That develops a belief in that person or those people or that child that I'm destined to be broke or middle class. I'm never going to be
Definitely.
wealthy.
Yeah.
I adopt that belief system for me now in my world. That belief creates an attitude. That attitude would sound something like this. There's no sense trying to achieve or start a business or try to become wealthy. I'm destined to be middle class. So my attitude is, why bother trying? My feelings then can generate anything from depression to a feeling of trapped, useless. There's nothing I can do about this. So that feeling is going to create my behavior, and that behavior is most likely going to be, I'm going to work a bunch of different jobs, or maybe even not work at all. Just I'm destined to be broke, or as I say, middle class. I'm never going to have wealth. So I never strive or behave in a way or do things that might help me do that, because it all goes back to that program. Hey, we're just middle class people.
And that's such an important part, your belief system, what you believe you can do. If you decide it's never going to work out, Larry, from the success you've had and the people you've worked with and have had that attitude, how many of them ever have succeeded?
Well, unfortunately, Neil, I think that very few do, but I do believe that it's based on the fact that very few people understand what we're talking about today and how that's actually at work in their lives. And as I said earlier on in this program, awareness to me is everything. When you become aware, I have two goals with every time I teach. My goal is to raise the level of awareness in the person I'm teaching. And then hopefully that awareness, because now I know I'm aware of something, it will trigger some self direction. Because motivation, as you and I know, is an inside job. We can inspire people, but we can't make another person do anything. Only we ourselves can make us do something. So I strive to trigger self direction after they have the knowledge. I have a little formula. It's called uh, I plus A equals R. It's information plus action equals a result. And I'll give you a quick example.
Yeah,
I
that's
do not know
definitely
how to fly an airplane right now as I'm speaking to you, but could I? Yes. I could
yes.
go get training. That's information. I could go take flying lessons and actually get in the air with a pilot. That's action. So information plus action equals R, which is the result. I'm now a pilot, or I now can fly an airplane. And that's true about almost everything in our lives. Barring any people being incapable of doing things, the average person can do so much more than they're doing. But it all begins, as I said, with that awareness. That's why this teaching is so critically important.
So before you think being aware is before belief or belief is before awareness?
Now, I think belief precedes awareness because we have belief systems in us, all of us do, that we're not aware of. I think the awareness comes later, again, with teaching and information, and that's part and parcel of what Stack Your Own Deck is all about. To awaken people, to teach them and awaken them to a new reality, a different reality. That, hey, irrespective, one of the most powerful things I've learned in my life is that it doesn't matter who I am or who we are or who you are, right up to the minute that I'm saying these words. My past, our past, does not equal our future. I can learn something, I can take action, I can create a different reality anytime I choose around any aspect of my life: my health, my wealth, my happiness, my relationships, my work, my business. All of those can be affected with these formulas, this self management sequence. That's why it's so exciting to teach and
Definitely.
to learn this.
And because that can change your health too. Because then if you believe you're only going to be this and be poor the rest of your life, or you're not going to be successful the rest of your life, your health is going to deal with it. And especially if you want things, yet you believe you can't accomplish things, Larry, that's huge because you
Well,
have, yeah.
absolutely, Neil. Let me give you another example around health because this is, uh, a pun intended, this is huge. That let's say the family programming is, and you've probably heard this said, hey, in this family, we're all big boned. We're destined to be overweight or obese. And, it's epidemic in this country right now. In fact, the medical community is calling obesity and diabetes, or diabesity is the term they're using now, as the next pandemic in this country. Obesity is driving almost all of the disease states in America today. And the current generation of adult males, obesity has doubled. The current generation of children, obesity has tripled. Having the medical community warning us that this generation of children is going to live sicker and die sooner than their parents, the first time in decades, if not ever, that will be the case. So let me go back to the sequence. This family's big boned. We're all destined to be overweight. It kind of runs in the family. So that's the programming. And you don't only get the verbal programming.
Exactly.
Don't worry about your weight. We're big boned. You also get the nonverbal programming, which is the meals that are served in that home, the food that is consumed, the bad diet, the processed foods, the sugars and all that stuff. So that's the nonverbal programming that supports the verbal programming. So the belief system becomes, well, I'm destined to be overweight and obese, and I'm just going to be okay with that. My attitude could be, hey, I, I, I there's no sense trying anything here because mom and dad said this is just the way it is, and they're proving it because they are obese, and I'm on my way. So I have an attitude that no sense trying to deal with this. It's just the way we are. My feeling then could become, as I said too, in my other example, same here. It could be depression. It could be a horrific self esteem. I hate that person I look at in the mirror every day, and that esteem is going to affect every bit of my life and my outcomes. And then my behavior, ultimately, from a programming system like that, a belief system, and those attitudes, my behavior becomes, guess what? I eat anything I want whenever I
Exactly.
want. I'll eat all the McDonald's, all the fast food, whatever. I'll just eat junk because it isn't going to matter. There's nothing I can do. And that's sad, but it's real.
It's definitely sad, Larry, and so I'm definitely trying to figure out. Again, we're speaking to Larry Bradley on his show, Stack Your Own Deck, and I'm co-hosting Neil Haley on the Neil Haley Network, and I know people will hopefully have a pad and paper and are jotting things down, but so far in the self-management sequence, if people like tuned in on the radio networks as well, what step are we on? I'm really interested in the fact that, first of all, you have to identify your behavior. And that means basically, if you don't know what your belief system is, that starts the process in self-management, it sounds like. But what else in the sequence? Kind of take us, that you talked about awareness. Is that second in the sequence or later in the sequence?
Well, you're driving a very important point here, Neil. And here's what I would suggest that people can do and should do with this sequence. Because I said earlier, we could have sets of beliefs. We, in fact, do have sets of beliefs and programming that we're not even aware of. So the way to tackle this is to reverse engineer the self-management sequence, just like you just said. So what do? I say, first of all, well, I've got an issue. I got a dilemma. Let's say I'm obese.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
my problem, and it's causing me some health issues, and I'm very concerned about it. When I say reverse engineer it, I first say, well, I'm obese. That's my problem. What are my behaviors that are supporting that obesity? Well, I eat like crap. I eat
Yeah.
whatever I
Yeah.
want. I eat tons of bad things for myself. Okay, now I've identified the behavior. Let me back up and ask myself, what feelings do I have inside of me when I'm doing these things, when I'm eating like this, knowing it's not bad for me? What are the feelings I'm having? And identify those feelings of, and it could get back to self worth, that I'm not worthy. My self esteem thermostat's set at a low level, so I don't really feel like I'm worthy of being healthy and in good shape. So therefore, I do the behavior of eating. Then you take it backwards to, well, what's my attitude about my weight? I realized that my attitude is I haven't really cared much because I felt like there's nothing I could do. Remember, we were destined to be this way. Our whole family's
Yes.
this
Okay.
way. So then I asked myself, what are my core beliefs about my size, my obesity? What are my core beliefs? And then I can go backwards to finally, where did they come from? Well, when I was growing up, we had ice cream every day. We had dessert after every meal. My mom and dad were both overweight, and they told us it's no problem. We're big boned in this family. So I reversed engineered. I examined myself going backwards in the sequence to find out where it's all coming from. So let me tell you what you do then. And I'm going to use myself as an example. Is that okay?
That's perfect.
Okay. I'm going to tell you how we deal with this. I ask myself, what one thing, this is a process called chunking up. When I'm setting a goal for me, I say at the very highest level, when I'm going up, 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 what is the one thing I could do for me? If I get it done, would have the most dramatic impact on every aspect of my life. So I chunked up, I did that exercise, and I realized to myself, there's a lot of things I want to do, have, and be and achieve. But I say, if I become perfectly fit, that achieving that alone is going to give me a ripple effect across all of my life. For example, if I become fit, I'm going to love how I look. I'm going to
Right.
love how I feel. I'm going to have new wardrobe. I'm going to be looking sharp, feeling sharp. I'm going to have a ton more energy. I'm going to be healthier. And as a result, I'm going to be happier. I'm going to achieve more because of that increased energy and self esteem and image. So, in my case, I asked myself, what is it I go through all of those things that are the benefits of me achieving perfect health and perfect fitness, right? I'll call it perfect fitness or near perfect fitness. Nothing's perfect, but I'm going to get myself fit and in shape. So then I chunk down to figure out I'm going the opposite direction now. Why do I want this? And I think, well, I'll look good. Well, I'll feel good. Well, I'll get more done. Yeah, all those things are true, but they're not really the core emotional reason. I got to get down to something emotional. Once I strike an emotion and asking myself the question, why do I want this thing? And I'll tell you what was mine. I finally got to. I have 4 grandchildren, and I'm sure having more on the way.
Yes.
Hey, Neil, I want to be around happy, healthy, and vibrant and live and share my life with those children. That's an emotional why. And that's when I chunked down and said, that's my why. And it touches me at a deep level. So then I go to say, how do I identify, how do I know that I've achieved that perfect fitness level? And for me, and this is what makes it really simple, Neil, I boiled it down to one thing: the size of my pants, my waist.
Yeah.
I said, ultimately, all these things I'm talking about can come to reality for me with a 34-inch waist. With a 34-inch
Oh, wow.
waist.
Okay. So you
Guess
set
what
a goal.
I do, Neil?
You sounded
I
out.
have all
Yeah.
this. I have all this belief, all this reality shrouding this goal of mine of perfect fitness, or I want to stop saying perfect, ultimate fitness. I want to be as fit as I can possibly be. I boiled all of those emotions, all those results, all that positivity, all that negativity. Everything boils down to a single number for me: 34. Now, I put, and this is a simple process anyone can do. Get a bunch of 3x5 index cards, and it could be for a woman, it could be a dress size. I want to be a size 2 or a size 4 or a size 6, and just put the number 6 on an index card. Like I put 34 on an index card, and I have that 34 everywhere. I have it in my car. I have it in my office. I have it in my bathroom. I have it in my kitchen. I have it everywhere where I'm going to see it. And you know what, Neil? I don't even have to look at the 34 anymore. I see out of the corner of my eye that index card. I know what's on it, and I know what it means, and it brings it all to reality. It's a program. That 34, that index card becomes my new program that's associated to all the good that's going to come from that goal, which is getting that 34-inch waist. And it drives a new program, which will create a new belief system, a new attitude, a new set of feelings. And guess what? I start behaving differently in a way that's going to get me to a size 34 waist or a size 6 dress or whatever it is that is the goal. And that process can be used for any, and I highly recommend that process because it's so powerful, but yet it takes it down to the barest simplicity of awareness. I want to be a 34-inch waist.
That's tremendous. And you, again, your self-management, first we have to do the self-management sequence, and we also can get help from Larry Bradley for sure. He's willing to answer questions and stuff for that self-management process. Then after that, then you chunk up and chunk down. Then there's a simple strategy to change your behavior. What is that strategy?
That strategy is to, again, as I said, identify your own issue or issues, figure out what the goal is that you want to conquer those negative issues, like I did. I want a 34-inch waist. Neil, think about this. What I'm saying to you is I went through this process of chunking up to the one thing, which was being as fit as I can be, boiled it down to the number 34. That 34 will affect my entire life.
Yes.
Every
So
aspect of my
so
life
basically
will be
this is it.
impacted by
Once
that.
you find that one thing is you envision, Larry, that's all it's needed, right? So that pretty much is the process. So like if you said, "Hey, I want to make another $10,000 a month." Well, you set your goals, you identify, you chunk, why am I not making that money? What are the strategies that I need to do? How will it change my life? And then have that one number or one job or one goal and put it on an index card and focus on it.
Right. It could, Neil, it could come down to I want to build wealth. I want to figure out what I want to make in an hour or a day or a week and put that number on that index card. Or identify a certain business that I want to be in by a certain date and put that on the index card. It doesn't have to be just numbers, it can be words or numbers. The key is to associate all the things you want with the goal to make sure it's a true goal and you really do want it. And once you've done that association, your mind is amazing because it doesn't forget things. It can be triggered off just again, like I said with me, I don't even have to see the 34. I see the index card and boom, my
Exactly.
mind fires off. Wow, that's right. All these wonderful things. And some of it's happening at a semi and subconscious level, not even at all at the conscious level, which is the beauty of how programming works with us. As I said earlier, you and I, we all have programs and beliefs that we're not even fully aware of because we haven't examined them. That's why that reverse engineering going backwards on the sequence is so powerful because it exposes to us who we are, how we think, how we're programmed, what we believe, and really is the clue to why we're behaving the way we're behaving, even knowing that sometimes that behavior is not good for us.
So far on today's episode of Stack Your Own Deck, we learned about how can we control our behaviors to make things better for our lives, happy, healthy. That's a goal that we all have in 2019. And what we first did is a self-management sequence. We can reverse engineer that self-management sequence. Then we chunk up and chunk down to figure out, well, what really do we want? And then there's a simple strategy to reach that goal. And now the last thing, what does this relate to again, our show? I would say, Larry, is that if you are unhappy and you are stressed, your health is going to be a mess. And that's a lot of our country.
Absolutely. And let me share with you what I like to tell people that actually, from a biological standpoint, almost all disease can be traced back to our mouth, right?
Right.
Oral health is critically important. But beyond that, here's what I like to tell people every time we eat or drink, speak or think, we are either feeding a disease or starving it. Neil, I would propose to you and our guests that if we really understood, I mean, really understood how powerful our minds are, we would never think another negative thought. Thoughts are things, thoughts create our reality. In his book, The Biology of Belief, Dr. Bruce Lipton says there are three causes of disease in a human being. He calls them the three T's, letter T. He
Okay.
said they are thoughts, or trauma, and toxins.
Okay.
Thoughts, trauma, and toxins. So he's saying biologically, we're creating illness and disease with our minds. And we are. In fact, we are. Look at the placebo effect, where a sugar pill can deliver the same powerful result as a very potent, even poison drug. Why is that? Because the person taking the placebo has a belief system, back to the sequence, that this is going to work. And guess what the mind and body does? It conspires for the good and says, we're going to create the result that's expected just by this person's mind. And it's so incredibly powerful.
It truly is. I mean, it's crazy. What is needed in the mind, and I believe really, stress has to do with how you feel. Your people around you. Sometimes you can't control them, but it's your mindset, your belief system, and your health. Your health will lead to lots of things if you're healthy, and if you're stressed and you feel not confident, unhappy, things are a big problems in your life, and then it will be at the doctor's office and it'll be in your pocketbook because of the cost of healthcare. And the only way we're going to change the way our healthcare system is by changing it ourselves, Larry, right?
Hey, Neil, you're making a very powerful point. And the Centers for Disease Control tells us that stress is now the number one delivery system for disease in America. Now, think about what you're talking about. You just said it, that most of us think that stress is an external. It's that boss, it's that family member, it's problem with the children, problem with the parents, it's problem with my health, it's the traffic jam, it's a canceled or delayed flight, it's on and on and on. The truth is, stress is not external. It is how we personally, again, beliefs, programming, how are we representing the stressor to ourselves in the world we're living in and interacting with? So stress is an inside job, but the good news here, it's how we're representing the world or the incident or the person. But the good news is, knowing it's an inside job, we now have the control to change. Example, I'm in a traffic jam. I have choices. I could have a good time, or learn from a book or audio book, or listen to some great music, or just chill out and meditate while I'm waiting for the traffic jam to clear. Or I can go ballistic with road rage and poison myself from the inside out with toxic cocktails that are created when we're in anger. I have a choice. The issue is reframe it, knowing what's really good for me. Take advantage of situations like that rather than have them control your behavior.
Well, again, a great episode of Stack Your Own Deck. Best place to connect with you, Larry, is on all your social media. Google you now with all the different things you have going on. Larry B. Wellness on Twitter, Larry Bradley Author on Facebook. Many places to connect. Stack Your Own Deck has their own social media as well, and then stackyourowndeck.com. And the podcast is available. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And thanks again for calling, Larry, and look forward to our next show.
Neil, thank you. It was a great show as always, and I'm looking forward to sharing even more with our guests because I do believe that we can instigate that wellness revolution in America that's so necessary for our future, our health, our happiness, our families, our loved ones. I look forward to sharing more with you, Neil.
Exactly. Take care, Larry. Me too. I really learn a lot from you. Take care, man. See ya.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. That was the Stack Your Own Deck. Take care, everyone.